Paying for a college education with scholarships is an amazing opportunity. It can save your student from decades of student loan debt, not to mention all the frustration, the stress, the fear that not only your student probably feels around paying for it, but you as well, as a parent, as a guardian. Since scholarship money doesn't have to be paid back, it can allow students to graduate without any kind of debt. Now, one question that we do receive, though, is do we have to pay taxes on this money, or are they tax-free? That's what I'm going to talk about in today's video and a little bit more. Now, make sure you hit subscribe because every week we release a new strategy to help you and your student work towards a debt-free degree. Hey there, my name is Jocelyn Pearson, founder of the Scholarship System, where we redefine paying for college to help families build strong financial futures rather than ones buried in student debt. Now, I got paid to go to college, literally, and we've helped families secure almost $13 million to date. So we have a lot of experience when it comes to scholarships, and we've seen scholarships affecting taxes. So I wanted to make sure that we cover this topic for you. Now, it's critical to note that this video is not intended to be official tax advice. You always want to run any tax advice by your CPA, by your financial advisor. Also, the information I'm sharing is the latest as of when I'm recording this, but it can always change based on the government, based on the IRS, based on taxes and tax law. So that said, scholarships and grants, they are coveted because it's free money to pay for college. It is the best opportunity families have to reduce their cost of college. This is how I was able to go for free. That said, if your student is bringing in a lot of scholarship money, first off, congratulations. If you're watching this video because you're concerned about it, then your student is probably sitting in a great situation, which is phenomenal. I would always rather pay a fraction of tax money on a free education than to have to borrow, on average, 21 years of student loan debt. So that said, this is not a bad thing if we are facing taxes and scholarships. Now, if you're wondering how do we get enough scholarships to where we have to worry about this, I do have a free training, my 6 steps to securing scholarships. You can check it out at thescholarshipsystem.com/free training, or you can find the link here on the screen. We'll also link to every resource, including that free scholarship webinar, in the description. Now, whether a student has to pay taxes on scholarship money actually varies by the use of it, the purpose of it. There are scenarios where it's tax-free or taxable. Overall, the IRS is pretty generous when it comes to scholarship and grants, but that money has to be spent on education-related expenses. Now, comment below, has your student been, or maybe you're facing it right now, has your student ever had to pay taxes based on their scholarship earnings? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to see how often this is coming up, because honestly, as much money as we've seen students secure, it doesn't come up too often. Okay, let's quickly break down taxable versus tax-free grant and scholarship funding. So non-tax, tax-free scholarship funds. Again, this is based on qualified educational expenses based on the IRS's definition, which you and I probably wouldn't necessarily agree with, but they do cover quite a bit. So they include tuition, any fees that are required, that's a key word there, required for attendance, maybe such things like mandatory student fees, activity fees. Books are allowed, equipment and supplies, as long as they are a must-have for a course. Basically, if it is a required expense to enroll in that college or in a particular class, then your student will not owe taxes on scholarship dollars used to pay for that. It also does not matter if your student pays through the college or pays through an outside source. If you're paying for outside sources and it's not shown on our college bill, then we do want to keep those receipts, but we absolutely want to claim those expenses as well. Now, it is important to note that most optional expenses do not fall into this. For example, if your student decides to get a relevant book, but it's not necessarily required on the syllabus, that technically would not be included. Also, purchasing a computer is not necessarily included. Now, I will say for me, that was not an issue. I'm not sure how it was justified, but we were able to submit the computer as a education expense. So this probably will vary case by case. No matter what, you always want to consult your tax professional before assuming anything here. Now, earlier I mentioned a expense showing on the college bill. So all of these expenses through the university, all the qualified expenses, and all the money your student receives, your students' university will give them a summary tax form of those dollar amounts. So this is called a 1098-T form. Every college student receives it while they're in the university. That way they can claim any kind of expenditures that they've paid or any kind of scholarship dollars they've received. So if those expenses on 1098-T are greater than the scholarships they received, most likely, again, run it by a CPA, there will be no taxes required. However, if the money is greater on the scholarship side than on the bill side, then that's when we need to find those other qualified expenses, those receipts, in order to justify that overage. Now let's talk about the taxable scholarship funds. And these are ones that are used on things such as room and board, insurance, medical costs, transportation, any kind of expenses related to sports or hobbies, and then any kind of personal expenses. So anything that's not really listed on that bill, not required for a course, it's optional. Again, this is where we would probably disagree with the IRS. I would say that housing is pretty required, but unfortunately they don't count that. Now, one other exception to this, again, everything should be summarized by the 1098-T form, and then you want to collect any receipts for anything bought outside of the university. Another thing would be, say your student receives scholarship dollars directly to them. Typically, if that's how it's handled, if the money's sent directly to a student, which happened to me, then they'll provide your student with a 1099 form for that. And that way it's legally handled properly. Okay, one other area I want to talk about are taxable stipends. So for some students, they might receive a stipend, which is considered basically income versus, say, a scholarship. It's given in exchange for a service, maybe tutoring services, maybe they're doing research. I actually cover the federal work study program. I have a whole video on it. We'll link to it in the description. You can also click on it on the screen here. Now, that is one stipend that is a caveat to this. There's no taxes on that. But other stipends, often given for graduate degrees, but sometimes for undergraduate, can be taxable. Now, I want to talk about my own personal experience with taxes. I got 6 figures in scholarships. I literally got paid to go to college. I had overage checks every single semester of a few $1,000s. So you would think that I had to pay taxes. I will tell you that there was only one semester where I remember my taxes being resulting in something I owed, and it was a couple $100s. So I would never be able to go back and pull out those tax returns. Maybe I can find them and compare them. But for me, this really was not an issue. Now, I will say that I did work part-time jobs. I always have, always did. And so I think what happened was, if I did potentially owe anything, it evened out with what I would have received back from my part-time job because I was such low income as a student. So it really never was an issue, even though I had my entire education paid for and I received overage checks every single semester. So I hope that that puts your mind at ease. If you find that if your student has a large tax bill, I would love for you to let us know in the comments. And that way we can do some more digging and try to figure out how that came about. But ultimately, most students are in a very low tax bracket, if any. They don't have much earnings. And if we're sitting in a situation where we have a surplus and we have to worry about this, then that means we just got a free ride. So that's a pretty good situation to be in. All right. So that said, let us know what questions you have around taxes and scholarships. Again, you always have to talk to your CPA, speak with your tax advisor, make sure you get it from a certified professional. But for now, I just wanted to give you the basics so that you know what to keep an eye out for. That 1098-T form, collect any receipts, 1099s for any money that's sent directly to your student, and be aware that any kind of stipends could be taxable. All right. Remember to hit subscribe because every week we have a new strategy for you. And if you're trying to find scholarships, make sure you check out my free training, the 6 Steps to Securing Scholarships, where I show you exactly where to find those legitimate scholarships, and that helped me work my way to that free ride. All right, I'll see you in the next video.